This is The Core Decision, a series about the quiet choices that shape outcomes, long before anyone notices and long after the noise fades. These are true stories, not about tactics, not about hacks, but about the moments where someone chose control over comfort, ownership over dependency, and long-term leverage over short-term wins. The merchant retired at 40. He'd made his fortune selling cutlery and hardware to settlers moving west. Good timing, good product, good location. The kind of business that prints money when the territory is expanding and everyone needs tools. He bought land with the profits, a lot of it, nearly 1,000 acres at the edge of a Midwestern city, just prairie grass and oak groves when he first rode out to see it. By the time he stopped working, he was one of the largest landowners in the region. The city was growing towards his property. Every year his holdings became more valuable without him lifting a finger. And then he did nothing. For years. He traveled. Europe, the gardens of England, botanical collections in London and Sheffield. He walked paths designed by people who'd been dead for generations, through landscapes built to outlast the people who planted them. When he came back, he didn't build a factory, didn't develop his land into lots, didn't do what any reasonable businessman would have done with 1,000 acres at the edge of a growing city. He started planting. People didn't understand. The city was booming. Industry was arriving. Land on the outskirts was worth more every year. Speculators were buying, subdividing, selling again at a premium. The smart money was in real estate development, railroads, manufacturing. And this man, a man who'd made his money by understanding markets, was putting trees in the ground. Not crops, not orchards, not anything with a commercial purpose, but trees, flowers, paths through meadows, a greenhouse, a library, a museum of botanical specimens. His neighbors thought he'd lost interest in money. His associates assumed it was a hobby, something rich men did when they had nothing left to prove. But that wasn't it. He consulted experts, botanists, scientists, curators of European institutions. He wrote letters across the Atlantic asking advice about soil, about collections, about how to organize knowledge that would accumulate over time. This wasn't a garden. Something else was taking shape. He'd seen what happened to private gardens. In Europe, he'd walked through estates built by men who believed their families would preserve their vision forever. Grand designs, rare specimens, decades of careful cultivation. And then their heirs sold, or lost interest, or went bankrupt, or simply died without children. A private garden dies with its owner. The next generation sells the land, subdivides it, turns it into something profitable. That's what happens. That's what always happens. He'd seen the pattern. And he'd seen something else, too. The gardens that survived weren't owned by families. They were owned by institutions. Not trusts that could be broken. Not foundations that could be redirected. Institutions with legal charters and public mandates that couldn't be unwound by a grandson who needed cash. The difference wasn't money. It was structure. Ownership versus inheritance. Permanence versus flexibility. He went to the legislature, not to ask for money. He had money. He asked for permission. Permission to bind his land to a purpose beyond his lifetime. Permission to create something that couldn't be sold, couldn't be subdivided, couldn't be converted into profit by whoever came next. He didn't want flexibility. He wanted permanence. The legislation passed in 1859. He donated land. He funded operations. He built systems, endowments, governance structures, succession plans that didn't depend on any single person or any single family. He wasn't building a garden anymore. He was building a machine that would run without him, that would continue running after him, that would still be running when no one remembered his name. This wasn't charity. This wasn't philanthropy in the way people usually meant it, giving something away and hoping for the best. He was solving a problem. The problem was time. Wealthy men build things, then they die. Then their things get sold or neglected or dismantled by people who didn't build them and don't understand them. He didn't fight that gravity. He built around it. If you've ever found yourself walking through those winter lights with something warm in your hands, hot chocolate maybe, or cider, moving slowly through paths lined with a million glowing bulbs while your breath fogs the cold December air, if you live near this Midwestern city, chances are you've probably been there. And if you've ever driven an hour outside that same city in the summer, parked at the edge of a prairie, and walked through wildflower trails that seem to stretch forever, tall grass and coneflowers, and silence that feels older than anything you can name. Yes, you've probably been there as well. 2 different places, same decision. One downtown behind old stone walls with greenhouses and formal gardens and rare plants from 6 continents. The other, sprawled across the countryside, restored prairie and wetland, the kind of landscape that existed before settlers arrived. Both are open. Both are maintained. Both operate like they were built to last another 200 years. Because they were. If the places taking shape in your mind right now seem to sound familiar, well, they should, because they both share a name borrowed from the man who made sure they would last for generations. Shaw's Garden, woven into the fabric of St. Louis, and Shaw's Nature Reserve, spread across the quiet rolling hills of Franklin County, Missouri. And the man responsible was Henry Shaw. He's been dead since 1889. He does nothing now. He manages nothing. He makes no decisions. He hasn't signed a check or hired an employee or adjusted a budget in over a century. And yet, every winter, families walk through those lights. Every summer, hikers move through that prairie. And every year, researchers study specimens he started collecting before the Civil War. The machine runs. It runs because he built it to run, because he didn't leave behind a garden or an estate or a pile of assets for someone else to manage. He left behind a structure, a legal architecture that couldn't be undone. His name is on a plaque somewhere. Most people walk past it without reading. That's fine. He wasn't building a monument to himself. He was building something that would work without him. There's a difference between owning something and controlling something. Ownership can be inherited, sold, lost, mismanaged. Control requires maintenance, attention, presence. Neither one survives time on its own, but structure does. Most people build things that require effort to sustain. When the effort stops, the thing decays. That's natural. That's gravity. A few people build things that don't require effort. Things designed to sustain themselves. Systems that operate without supervision. Architectures that hold shape regardless of who's in charge. The difference isn't resources. It's thinking. Structure versus effort. Permanence versus flexibility. Building something that works without you versus building something that only works because of you. Shaw didn't fight time. He didn't try to control what would happen after he was gone. He knew he couldn't. So he designed around it. He built a machine that didn't need him. And that's what really happened.